and instructions. It is a $1,349 value. A couple of things to know about today's webinar. We will have a poll question early on in the presentation. This is the chance for attendees to ask questions of our presenter, to participate in the poll. We will also have the chance for attendees to enter questions throughout the webinar for our presenter, and at the end of the webinar we will have a chance to ask some of those questions of our presenter. Today's webinar is titled Monitoring and Analyzing Physical Activity Patterns. Our presenter is Dr. Robert Pangrazi. Today's webinar will focus on the FitStep Pro uploadable pedometer and how to analyze your students' physical activity patterns and enhance your physical education classroom. I have the pleasure of introducing our presenter, Dr. Robert Pangrazi. Dr. Pangrazi is Professor Emeritus of Physical Education, Arizona State University, and Educational Consultant for Gopher Sport. Robert Pangrazi is the author of over 55 textbooks and 110 research articles. Dynamic Physical Education for Elementary School Students is in its 16th edition and is used as a curriculum across the U.S. Pangrazi is the author of the Active and Healthy Schools program and is also the developer of the FitStep Pro uploadable pedometer that will be the focus of today's webinar. At this time, I will turn the presentation over to our presenter, Dr. Robert Pangrazi.
Thanks, Tabor. I appreciate it, and I'm excited to speak with all of you. I know you need a break today as you make that stretch run to Thanksgiving and a chance to rehab a bit. So thanks for joining in, and let's see if I can kind of shed some light on what it takes as you travel down the road to accountability and talk a little bit about gathering activity data on your fine youngsters. The purpose of my webinar, I'm going to kind of look at it from three sides, is to just show you how we gather data using pedometers, and then what equipment's needed to do all that, and then to help you understand how some brand new FitStep Pro software will help you manage your data and make your life much easier. This will be version 2 of the FitStep software, so if some of you have been using the first version, I think you'll be impressed with some of the changes made in this new one. So we're excited about that. I'd like to find out just a little bit about how you collect and analyze your activity data. So if you'll check your screen and answer down below there in how you collect and analyze your data at your school, I would appreciate that, and we'll just take a couple of moments here to do that. So please jump in and vote, and then we'll see what the results are. You'll be able to see those on your screen as well. All right, it looks like there you can see the answers. A lot of people don't collect any activity data. You know, it's pretty well spread out. So we've got, I like that. We've got a crowd to cover all bases here. So I think what we talk about here will make some sense to you, and hopefully by the end I'll be able to shed a little light on it for you. Let's just talk about something. You probably wonder why I often harp about the need for objective data that really deals with student behaviors and student habits. You know, I take the approach to teaching that if we don't change behavior, then we haven't really taught anything. We've told people a bunch of facts, but if that has no impact on their behavior, what's the point? And, you know, if you just saw the article recently, you look at fitness and all the time we've spent on fitness, and yet we're saying today's kids aren't as fit as their parents were. And so something's wrong, and maybe we need to change the focus, and I think we do, and I've advocated that because I think we need a standardized test dealing with activity monitoring and promoting increased physical activity. And the reason I think that's so important, if you look at this slide on the narrowing of the curriculum and why we need achievable outcomes, take a look at math, reading, and science. They get all the money because they have a lot of outcome measures and a high level of accountability. You look below that test filter line, however, and you're looking at things like citizenship. Well, how do we measure it? Social skills, how do we measure it? And then you get to physical education. We've measured fitness forever, but we don't have much to show for it. We've tried to measure skills, but we don't have any hard data to do that. And until we get something where we have hard data, I think we're going to be on the bottom half of that test filter and become a marginalized area. And I just don't want to see that happen. And that's why if you get tired of hearing me talk about the need for accountability and hard data, that's my reason. Now, while we're talking about data, I thought it might be just good to just bring you up to speed quickly on how active kids are. And I'm showing you these from studies, but please remember that these are averages. And I'm not much of an average person because the kids we really need to get to are the fringe kids, particularly in the lower half of activity, who aren't being very active. And if a youngster is getting 5,000 steps a day and you tell them to jump up to 13,000 steps, that's a huge turnoff. And we've often done that. So please don't look at these and say, well, I have to have every kid to this level. What you really need to do is take a youngster, find out what their current level is, and set it maybe a 10% increase in activity for that youngster and set a reasonable goal that seems within reach, and they'll be motivated. But just so you know, the average for boys and girls varies. Boys around 13,000, girls around 11,000. If you notice at the bottom of that screen, I've said the Presidential Active Lifestyle Award is around 12,000 steps. And basically what they did was a lot of people didn't like having one standard for boys and a different standard for girls. And so they came to agreement that we'd make it 12,000 steps. I'm not going to get into that discussion as to whether you should or you shouldn't. I'll just let the data speak for itself. Now, these are pre-adolescents. These are elementary school children. And so when you look at adolescents, you'll see that the activity level goes down a little bit, down to around 11,000 and 10,000. It's not surprising that it goes down. Number one, they're taking longer stride lengths, so they're going to accumulate fewer steps to cover the same distance. And secondly, we know that adolescents are locked into their day probably to a greater degree with things, and so that may have an impact on it. And then, old dogs aren't as active as young puppies, and so that's probably part of the aging process as well. But this just gives you some idea. And then, of course, the FitStep Pro measures moderate to vigorous physical activity and activity time, and I don't think you should ever buy a pedometer without activity time on it, because that way you don't have to worry about stride length impacting and influencing the number of steps someone gets. So if you have pedometers with only step counts on them, Aaron Beatley and myself did a study back in 2006, and we came up with a regression equation to determine the association between step counts and activity time. So as a general rule of thumb, if you look at this, about 5,000 steps is about an hour of activity time. And that doesn't talk about the intensity of it. We're not talking MBPA here, but it gives you some idea of the amount of time kids are being active if all you have is step pedometers. Okay, so let's move on. What does it take to collect, store, and analyze activity data? Well, first of all, it takes a set of pedometers, obviously, at least 6 data readers, because kids are going to go up, put their pedometer into the data reader. You see the round hub here, that's a USB hub, so you can plug all those in and then plug your USB hub into the computer. In this case, we have 9 of them, and by the way, the new software will take as many data readers as you want to hook onto it. Just depends on the size of your hub. And then you'll need some place to put your computer and your data readers. The first thing you're going to do is set up your pedometers, and that means you're going to number them physically with a magic marker or some kind of indelible ink pen, both inside and outside. Because students are you're going to want the same student to use the same pedometer day in, day out. Now, you'll lose a lot fewer pedometers if you do that, and you'll have some consistency and know, well, maybe that pedometer is not working right or something. If you see a big change in their activity levels. And so that's easy enough to do. And then you have to take that pedometer number that you've written on the pedometer and put it inside the pedometer, and I'll show you how to do that in a little bit here. The next thing you need to do is have a way of distributing and storing your pedometers, an easy way to get them inside and out. Let's be honest, as teachers, you know that if something becomes an aggravation to you, basically you have a couple of choices: change it or quit doing it. And I don't want you to quit using pedometers, because I want you to use them in a way in which it's very easy to bring them in and out, store them, put them away. And I'm going to show you one such system today to make your life easier. But we never put more than 6 pedometers in a pencil box. Because that way, when you have students check them and you eyeball them at the end, it's very easy to see if 1 out of 6 is missing. Whereas if you threw 10 or 12 in a pencil box, you're not going to know if one's missing or not. So I pretty much advise you not to get much more than 6 to a box. So the next thing you have to do is put on pedometers, and you're going to see how this teacher in this video has them get their pedometers and put them on, etc. What you're going to see in the video is that he's talking to the class ahead of time outside the gym, primarily telling them I'm there, and probably to do their very best. So I think they're a little more sedated than they might be on normal days. But let's watch him in action here. He does all his anticipatory set in pre-talk outside, so here they're coming in now. He's having them do a 30-step check to see if they're counting accurately. You can see how he laid out his pencil boxes. And away we go. He's ready to go. So basically, if you think about it, that video is about 1 minute and 50 seconds long. You watched 1.5 minutes, but he spent 30 seconds outside the gym just giving them a little set for the lesson. And you can see in a minute, he can have them on. They can check see if they're counting accurately, and then away they go. So, and I want to add here, one of the things I was concerned about, I work with the Mesa School District. My wife's the supervisor of physical education there, and we have about 60 elementary schools. And when we first started with pedometers, I was concerned that, teachers might get concerned about kids fiddling with them. It takes us no longer than 4 PE periods and kids are to the point they don't even look at them again. They're on like a wristwatch, and that's that. So that has been no issue with any teacher at all. We've not heard any complaints about them playing with them at all. Now you have to have a place to store your data or your equipment and to be able to secure it and bring it out quickly. And I'm just going to show you the setup that this teacher uses. Some people put them on the stage on the multipurpose room and then collect it. But I like this because it's all on a little audio-visual cart with 2 trays that slide in and out. He has 6 readers into the USB hub that you see down on the bottom shelf there, and then plugged into his computer. He can roll this in and out of his equipment room. Everything's secure. It's easy to do. And then kids, of course, can come up and download their data. And here it is from a top view, looking at them uploading their data. And then, of course, they put their pedometer in, the lights flash. In a second and a half, the data is uploaded, and then the software also clears their pedometer, so it's ready for the next class. So it uploads, clears the pedometer, they put their pedometer away, and you know, that's pretty much the process. I'm going to show you a little video on that as well. So let's take a look at the business of uploading data. Okay, so you get to see just how quickly it uploads, how easy it is, and your data is in. Now you're all set up. You are ready to go, and you want to collect data, and you need some software for uploading and some software for setting up your classes, and then to give you some reports. Let me just kind of walk you through this process. The first thing you're going to want to do, as I told you earlier, you need to embed the pedometer number into the pedometer. Then it will always show up in all your reports, and you'll know that Bob Tangrazi is always using pedometer number 30. Now, just as a reminder, some people think when they're using them in PE that they need one unique pedometer for each kid. So if I have 400 kids a day, I've got to have 400 pedometers. Well, not so, because all you do is change the class name each time, and only those students in that class show up. So if you're using 1 through 30 in David Kern's class here, you can now go into a different class and use pedometers 1 through 30, because as soon as you change class, it'll know that that pedometer number 30 is unique to that kid in that class. So we don't want you to be mixed up here. Now, to put the numbers in, what I do is, after I have them all numbered on the outside by hand, then I just set out a data reader and put it in this mode, in the setup pedometer mode, where you see the red arrow, and you look down there and you see that it says current pedometer number, and you're going to put in number, it'll be 0 because it's a new pedometer, but you could put in whatever number you wanted. Then you're going to put in a new pedometer number, which in this case, if it were mine, would be number 1, and then I'd also check the box, write new number into the pedometer. Now, as soon as I put that pedometer in the reader, it puts in number 1. I take it out, put in the next one. It advances the new pedometer number by 1 each time. So I can just, as quickly as I can put them in, I can have my pedometers numbered. Then you need to set up your classes. And this is a class setup screen. And first of all, if you look at the window on the left here, you'll see that if I'm Coach Lombardi, he has all his 7th grades, and if you were to click on the little triangle there, it would open up the names of all his 7th grades, 8th grades, etc. And I'm clear down here at the bottom. I've got a 5th grade, and so I would have that in there. And if I want to add a new class, I just go over here to either a new instructor or a new class. In this case, since I would click on Pangrady here, and then I go over and click on a new class, type in the name of the class, and then type in the first and last name of the students. Gender, pedometer number, and student number are optional, but I don't know why you wouldn't want to put a pedometer number in there, but the software won't work if you don't put a first name, at least a first name and last initial. Now, the next question I always get is, well, can you upload the class names and that through an Excel spreadsheet so I don't have to type each one in down at the bottom here in this screen? And the answer is yes, you can. Let me show you that here. So maybe I have Ms. Massany's class data all listed in an Excel file. I could have first and last name there, pedometer number, student number, and gender, and I could upload all that data all at once by just going into the software, asking it to import new students, going down here, open Ms. Massany's file, and it would all be imported. So some of you that have hated to type each name and all that data in, that shouldn't be an issue any longer if you can get your class list in an Excel spreadsheet. I think that will be very helpful to you. Then you're ready to upload data, as I showed you earlier. The nice thing about the new software is that when you click on David Karn's class, what you're going to find here is that all the kids are going to come up in a red font. That means their data hasn't been uploaded yet. And just as soon as any of these kids upload their data, as you saw in the video, their names will turn to green. So after uploading, you can just walk over here, eyeball this list quickly, and if there are any red names there, you're going to quickly check to see, you know, why it didn't upload or what's going on. For some of you that have used the old software, sometimes there was an issue with a reader not reading correctly, and then it locked up the whole program. Well, each of the USB readers, data readers here, work independently of each other. So if you do have a problem, it won't stop uploading on all the other readers. So I think that's going to be helpful to you. And then finally, you want some reports that are quick and very easy to do. Now, the first thing you're going to look at here is reports, our workouts under reports, and that's going to list every workout that the student in Pete Wilson's class has done. So you see I checked Pete Wilson over here on the left, and that brings up all the workouts for his class. And I just highlighted one student here, and then down at the bottom where the red arrow is on the left, you can see that it gives you the total number of steps and the mean daily number of steps based on the number of workouts, and the same for MVPA and activity time. So that's an easy way to see what's going on with kids, and if you want to do a quick eyeball check to see what's going on, makes it pretty easy for you. Now maybe you want to do a weekly report, and you want to do it for the last 3 weeks, or maybe 3 weeks clear back in August or something. I wanted to see a report, and I'm going to use this date range feature here, and you notice I set it for September 15th until October 4th. I wanted to look at a weekly report for each one of those. So it's going to summarize all the days. You can see he had 5 one day and 4 the next and 5 another, and you can see all that, and then I want to see that in a weekly report. So this gives me a rough eyeball of what I'm going to get. This would sort of be a preview look, And then I'm going to go up into File Print over under this menu item, and I'll get this weekly summary report, and it's going to look like this. It's going to be printed out, and here we saw Alex Lee's data. Remember I told you he had 5 days, 4 days, and 5 days, and now it gives a nice printout for each and every student and makes it very easy for you to see that data in a weekly report. And you could select, you know, any number of weeks you want, any time period you want. If you wanted to do it for a semester, as long as you select the date, you can do that, and you can also select what items you want in there. Another nice feature is what we call the physical activity report, and that you just click on the report, go up and say print, and what it'll do, it'll print out a report like this for every student in your class. You'll see the student here, the teacher, the grade, and then down here is their average and total MVPA steps and activity time and the number of days they were monitored. And then down below, you can't see the rest of the report. I didn't have room for it on my screen, but basically what it shows you is just a definition of each of these categories and what you collected, so that if you send this home to parents or give it to teachers or give it to the students, it explains what you were measuring and what you had in mind. And I think, you know, that kind of brings us to a close on the webinar. I'm going to turn it back over to Tabor, but I hope that gives you an overview of what the new software is like, what it takes to monitor activity, and how you now have some objective data that you can share and make yourself look much more accountable for what you're doing. And just let me close by saying, you know, we're not putting pedometers on kids so they can compare their steps or anything else. We're trying to change their lifestyle. Once activity becomes an important part of your lifestyle, it becomes like brushing your teeth. You don't even think twice about it. You just do it because you monitor it and know that if you don't, you really don't have a very good idea of how active you've been. When you start doing that on an everyday basis, we've changed your lifestyle. We've changed your behavior and patterns, and physical education now has an outcome measure that is very easy for others to see. So thank you for your attendance, and I'm sure Tabor will open it up to question and answers, and I'll stay online if I can answer any of the questions you have. Tabor?
Thanks, Bob. Our first question that we have, and for the attendees, feel free to go ahead and type any questions you have in the Q&A section on the right side of the screen. Our first question is, does the data go straight to the computer and the program? So maybe talk a little bit about how the reader works with the computer and the program too.
Yes, Tabor. Pretty much yes to the question. All parts of it. Yes, it does go directly from the reader directly into the software. You have the software up and running. It's stored in a database file. And by the way, I might add, I didn't, but in one fell swoop on that new software, you can go up and say File, Export Entire File to Excel, and it will, in one fell swoop, download every teacher, every class, into an Excel spreadsheet for you. And so it's not that you have to take one class at a time like we used to have to do in the first version of the software. So it's very easy to manipulate in case you wanted to, you know, compare classes, chart data, and that sort of thing.
Okay. The next question is about how durable the pedometers are, and maybe get into a little bit about the, you know, the mechanism within these pedometers is a little different than maybe what people are used to also. Yeah,
I think it is different. The first thing you notice when you pick up one of the FitStep Pros is that you don't hear any clicking. You don't hear a pendulum in there shaking back and forth. And those are very susceptible to breakage, obviously, because they're loaded with a weight, and so as soon as you drop them, that very sensitive mechanism will often bend or break. These use a piezoelectric membrane, and what that does is it feels a little bit of stress, gives off the electric current, and counts a step whenever there's a change in force. So they're very resistant to breakage. In fact, as part of my demonstration when I'm putting on a workshop, I usually play around with it and drop it right out of the chute because I want to show teachers that they're very, very durable and they don't break easily, and I think that's very important. The second thing I just want to add on to that, because these are the kinds of real issues for teachers, is that the batteries, this has a good sleep circuit in it, and it uses a battery that's about 4 times larger than previous pedometers. And so the battery, if you were to upload 16 times a day, the battery would last for about 3 years of constant use. So the lifetime of the battery is much longer, and there's nothing that is more of a pain in the neck than changing batteries. Take it from me.
Okay, the next question, I'm going to kind of combine 2 questions in one. The first part of this is how young of a student could using pedometers be effective and accurately used in your experience? And the other part, the question was, have these pedometers been successful with high school students? So maybe speak a little bit to the age range within a physical education program from K to 12 with the use of the pedometers in the program.
Well, let me, I'll speak directly to that because I think that's a nice question. First of all, we put pedometers on kids in the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grades, but we don't upload. We want them just to get used to looking at them, understand what they measure, and we don't put them on every day. We put them on periodically throughout the year so that they get used to wearing them and think nothing about it. Starting in 4th grade, then we start uploading data, and we get serious about doing that, but we're patient. We take our time. We give the kids 6 to 8 weeks of uploading. We don't take the data too serious because we've got to iron out all the bugs as they come, and we want to make sure that everybody's on board and the software is working well and everything's good. So we don't stress ourselves. Now, when we want to do accountability data, then we gather 4 days, and they don't have to be consecutive, but we gather 4 days of data that we know is being accurately measured and is well representative of what we're doing. But that comes well after we're into the school year a bit, so students are very used to it, and we know that they've checked them and they're counting accurately. Now, as far as high school, some of you, I'm sure, have seen Maria Court teach at some of the PEP Summits and in other workshops. She uses them at the high school. To be honest with you, it's much easier with high schoolers than it is with elementary school kids. Once they get used to them, they use them just like anybody else, and if a youngster is trustworthy, you can even use them on a 24-hour surveillance, so they start to get really used to them. I mean, one of my goals and one of my dreams would be we graduate students doing 24-hour surveillance of their activities, so when they leave, that's a lifestyle they've learned and carry on throughout life. Again, if you think about what PE has delivered to kids to use for a lifetime, there aren't many things. And this would be a habit that they could use forever. So high school, absolutely. Middle school, absolutely. They're fantastic. I love working with middle school students because they're great with them. So, yeah, I don't see any issue at any grade level.
Okay. Bob, the next question, speak a little bit to the physical activity report. The question is, what are the benefits of the physical activity report, and where do you go once you have the data? And I think this question is maybe a little bit up to the discretion of the teachers as to what they want to do with the data, but maybe you can speak to some of the things you've seen.
Yeah, I think you're right. It is up to the discretion of the teacher. I'd probably go one step higher. I'd say it's up to the discretion of the physical education director or to the curriculum director or to the, whatever your line of sight is in your district. I think it's up to someone. When someone starts calling for that data, they're talking about accountability. I see that as a good thing. Now, PE people haven't always seen that as a good thing. I see it as a very positive thing because this is something where we can show results, and I think it's important. In terms of the physical activity report, I think you always start with the student. I was in servicing about 80 teachers yesterday afternoon, and one of the things I said to them as we were going through pedometers is I said, you know, do me a favor when you talk about data at the end, talk about a threshold that's low enough where every kid can raise his hand and say, yeah, I did 600 steps. And then if you want to go up to 1,000, you can go there, but don't take it all the way up where you find the kid with the most steps. You're always rewarding the kid who's the most active in the first place. And to be honest with you, that's not my greatest concern. I'm much more concerned about getting an inactive student active. So I think this report goes to those inactive kids, and we give them a goal that's very achievable for them, and we make their activity important to them. You know, your activity level doesn't mean anything to me. My activity level means a lot to me. And I think that's what we should be teaching kids so that they learn to monitor themselves and make it important to themselves. So I think it all depends on what they want. If your administrators are asking for some kind of report, I would probably download it, report it in an overall Excel spreadsheet, and graph it, and maybe send it in if you really want to make it look good. But, you know, that's your call. Once you get it into a spreadsheet, there are a lot of people in your district probably that could put together a pretty nice report for you.
Okay, thanks. The next question is related to the docks. The question is, do the docks come with the pedometers? The docks do come with the pedometers in the packages of pedometers, 15, 30, 100, and they're also sold separately. But Bob, maybe you can speak a little bit to, from a practical standpoint, how you've seen teachers use the docks, how many have they used, how many kids, you know, can use 1 or 2 or 3 docks, how quickly the pedometers upload the data.
Well, I don't like to have more than, let me turn it around. I like 1 dock for, if I'm looking at an optimum setup, I want 1 dock for about 6 kids. You saw I put 6 pedometers in a pencil box, and I think it's easy to keep track of. There's not a bunch of crowding around and everybody flocking in there. And I just think that makes it a lot easier. So, you know, I would like a data reader for that many. Now, certainly, you can take it up to 10 and it'll work just fine. You could probably take it up more, but now we're back to lines. And all of you that have been around me know I'm terribly allergic to lines, and I hate kids standing around doing nothing. You saw this teacher bring up a squad at a time while continuing to do a little closure on his lesson. I think that's certainly another way to do it, but I think you just have to determine how many of the readers you want, and you know, it's all going to be how fast you want to have your data uploaded, and for me, I want it fast, if not faster. Okay,
good. I'm going to combine 2 questions here again, and they both they're both related to assessment. The question is, are the activity levels based on the pedometer used to help determine student grades, or simply a tool to teach or show students and parents, administrators, actual versus perceived activity level? And the second question that's similar to that is, how can you use this as a summative assessment for grading in high school?
Well, that's a big, long question, and you know, heck, I'll probably be lucky to remember the first part of it now because you gave me 3 parts, Tabor. You're putting the pressure on me. But
sorry about that.
I would say let's take them one by one. Give me the first thing they asked.
Okay. So are the activity levels based on the pedometer used to help determine student grades, or are they simply a tool to teach or show students and parents?
Well, I think first and foremost, I want to have them impact their behavior levels, and so I want to share as much data with the student, teach them as much as I can about the pedometer, how it works, what their current activity levels are, and I don't want to grade on it in a way in which a student who gets the most activity will get the highest grade, and the kid who gets the least activity will get the lowest grade. I mean, that's counterproductive in anything you do. I mean, if anything, and I mean this sensitively, but you know, all the fitness testing we've done, it only reminds the kid who fails the fitness test over and over, year after year, that he isn't fit, and that's certainly no way to cultivate a love of fitness. In my mind, if I failed something time after time after time, I'd walk away from it. That's what most adults do, but unfortunately, kids can't. So I first and foremost want you to not worry about the product of the activity as much as, if you want to get to grading, and I know there's a high school level question in there, and that's good too. I think the issue if you have a class where you're asking students to report their data every day throughout the semester, then I think it would be the process of reporting that's important, and I'd be less concerned about the amount of activity. Now, the other way to look at it then is to go in, instead of personal goal, I've designed a goal-setting module for our teachers, and in that they go in and find the teachers, the students' baseline level, and then we increase it by 10%, and that's their goal for the next 2 weeks, and then we increase that again until we get up to a somewhat acceptable level of activity. Now, certainly that's a process, and that's a process of improving your activity level. That I could certainly grade on, because that's a process I want you to follow, a process I want you to carry out. But as far as just a flat out, I'm going to measure it on the amount of activity time, well then what you're really telling me is the kids who are inherently active are going to always get the high grades, and the kids who are inherently inactive, and you know what they look like, they're probably overweight, they don't like activity particularly, they're always going to get the lowest grades. Well, how would that in any way motivate any youngsters? So I think you have to be extremely cautious. I told the teacher yesterday he was going to identify the outstanding student in the school by the student who did the most activity. And I said, my gosh, you're going to be the same kid every time, or the same top 5 kids. I said, you know, what's motivational about that thing you're putting in place? So I suggested that he work on the process, and if they follow the process, their name gets thrown into a pool, and then we pick out a winner who's a student of the week or something. I mean, there's got to be some motivation for everybody, and if there's anything we've failed on is we've sent out one workload for all and then expected all students to meet that standard and then complain when they don't. And you know what, I'll get down off the soapbox and go back to Tabor.
All right, thanks. The next question is about the software and the updates, a little bit more of a technical question. Can you speak a little bit to the Mac version versus the PC version, kind of our second edition of the Mac version, and how we update software for people that are using these pedometers?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and I'm glad you asked it. First of all, let me just say the software is free for anybody. You can get on the Gopher website anytime and download it. And the reason we make it free is because we feel that if you've bought the readers, then you know you've got access to the software. A copy of the software comes with every reader, but you can also download it at any time. And we have not updated that first version. So if you've gone back to the web and thought maybe you were getting an updated version, you haven't been. So whenever we offer an update in the future, it will have the new version on it, and you can download that, so you'd want to check on a regular basis. With the new software, you'll be able to download it, as many copies as you want. You'll be able to download it from the website. We're just about finished. I've been testing it in the schools now for the past 3-4 weeks, and I just talked to the software developer today, and we're getting a lot of things ironed out. And I also was told that he's got a Mac person now starting to convert that. So, you know, I would guess that somewhere right after the first of the year we'll have both versions ready to go, but I won't let you pin my ears to the wall on that one because I can never be sure about it. But I'm getting fairly optimistic the way we're going, and so that's my best guess for you right now. But it'll always be on the website, and we're going to make it very easy for you to find it.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, and that, I think it's important for everybody to understand that when we update the software, there's a new version of it. It's pushed out through that website, and it is free. So, you know, the current version has changed at least once, I think, and so as we continue to make changes, those updates are always going to be there.
Hey, Tabor, I want to. Can I say one more thing on that? Because I think this is important to the people who have used version 1. The new version, when you upload it, will automatically convert your current database into the new version. So you won't have to do a thing like we had to do with the old version. So this time when you upload it, it will automatically convert your database and overwrite the old program. Just for your peace, of mind, it will also keep an old version of the database and your software on your computer, but it will automatically import it, and then you'll just go up to File, Import New Database, and there, or Open New Database, and there it will be. There will be all your data. Go ahead, Tabor.
Okay, the next question, I think you touched on this a little bit, but you know, in your experience, do you have students take the pedometers home, or is it strictly a class use? I know that is dependent a lot on how the teacher wants to use the pedometers, but what have you seen in your experience?
Yeah, we're starting to do more all the time that way, and you know, you have to build trust. So we're starting to record all day activity, so that they come in the morning, go through school, and at the end of the day they come in and download their data. And that's pretty neat. Now I remind you, once you start to go into a school day activity, or with your high school kids in particular all day, remember you've got to have a pedometer for every youngster, so that's going to increase the cost of your program. And I love that idea. I think that's where we should be going, and I hope we start to look at pedometers like books. In some of the districts, we're starting to get the pedometers to be placed on the book list, and they just buy that as part of their book list, and every youngster is expected to bring a pedometer to school. So hopefully we'll start down that route. But then I think you go to all-day data, and man, when we get there, we're really going to have some things to chat about, because we're now going to be able to see what kids are doing all day on their free time and the amount of activity they're picking up out of school. Might even be able to see how much PE influences the activity they pick up out of school.
Okay. Another little bit of a technical question, and we talked about the docks and the number of them. How long does each pedometer take to sync the data to the computer software program? It sounds like there's maybe a little bit of confusion as to how the pedometer works with the dock and how you put that in, and then how long it takes for the data to go in.
It takes all of 1.5 seconds. You walk up to the dock, you put your pedometer, you open it up, you put your pedometer under the hooks on the dock, press down on the pedometer, the lights flash for 1.5 seconds, it's in your computer and safe, never more to be seen by the student.
Okay, good. Well, I think we've gotten through just about all of our questions here. I'm going to read off our winner of the Pedometer Power Pack, and just again to remind everybody, this webinar series is going to be ongoing throughout the school year at least. We will have one every month. It's going to roughly be around the 3rd week of the month. I think next month is going to be on Tuesday, December 17th at 1 o'clock Central Time. And keep an eye out on your emails for that topic. It'll be coming out here shortly, probably shortly after the Thanksgiving break. But our winner of our Power
Come on, Tabor. Come on, Tabor. I want to hear the big winner. Let's hear it.
All right, all right. The winner of our Pedometer Power Plus pack of pedometers is Krista Scrontz from Central Elementary School at Stanley County Schools in North Carolina. So congratulations.
Yay.
It's a $1,349 pack with docks and pedometers, storage case, the whole works to get you up and running. So we'll have that sent out here shortly. But thanks again, Bob, for your time. We appreciate the webinar. And everybody else, thank you for joining us. And we hope to see you back here next month. Thanks, Bob.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.